Maya was only 15, but she already had a big heart and a warm smile that could light up any room. That afternoon, after finishing school, she decided to stop by a well-known fashion store in the city. Her best friend's birthday was coming up, and Maya wanted to surprise her with something special. She had been saving her pocket money for weeks, putting aside small amounts every time her father gave her allowance. Now she finally had enough to buy a thoughtful gift, and she walked with excitement into the store. The store was bright, filled with shiny glass cases and elegant displays of handbags, shoes, and dresses. Soft music played in the background, and the air smelled of expensive perfume. Most customers inside wore polished suits, designer jackets, and jewelry that sparkled under the lights. Maya felt a little out of place with her school uniform and backpack, but her heart was full of purpose. She wasn't there to impress anyone, she was there to shop, just like everyone else. She carefully looked at a rack of handbags. Her best friend loved small purses, especially ones in bright colors. Maya smiled as she touched one in soft pink leather. She imagined her friend opening it on her birthday, her face lighting up with joy. That thought made Maya's own heart beat faster with excitement. She was lost in this happy imagination when a sharp voice cut through the air. "What are you doing here?" a woman asked loudly. Maya turned and saw a tall white woman standing only a few feet away. She looked to be in her 50s, dressed in a fancy coat with pearls around her neck. Her expression was not kind. She frowned deeply, her eyes scanning Maya from head to toe. "I'm just looking," Maya replied softly, trying to stay polite. The woman crossed her arms. "This is not a place for you," she said, her voice loud enough that a few nearby customers turned their heads. "You shouldn't be here. Stores like this are not meant for, well, people like you." Maya felt her cheeks grow hot. She didn't understand why the woman spoke like that. She hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't touched anything roughly or behaved badly. She was only looking, the way every other customer was. "I'm just shopping for a gift," Maya said gently, still trying to keep her voice calm. But the woman shook her head, clearly not satisfied. She waved toward a sales assistant who was folding scarves at the counter. "Excuse me. Can you deal with this girl?" she called out. "She shouldn't be allowed in here. You should ask her to leave before she causes trouble." The sales assistant looked nervous. She glanced at Maya, then back at the woman. For a moment, she seemed unsure what to do. Maya stood silently, clutching her backpack straps tightly in her hands. She could feel all eyes on her. Some customers looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Others pretended not to notice, choosing to continue browsing. No one spoke up for her. The woman stepped closer to Maya. "Why don't you leave already? You don't belong in this store. You're making people uncomfortable." Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to defend herself, to say she had just as much right to be there as anyone else, but her throat felt dry. She bit her lip, holding back the sting of tears. She didn't want to give this woman the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The sales assistant finally walked over, shifting nervously from one foot to another. Maybe it would be better if you came back another time," she said to Maya softly. Her voice carried hesitation, but the words felt like a betrayal. She was telling Maya to leave, even though she had done nothing wrong. The woman smirked with satisfaction. "Yes, exactly. Listen to her. Off you go," she said sharply, waving her hand as if shooing a child. Maya looked around. Everyone in the store had gone silent. Some avoided her eyes, others looked at her with pity, but no one stepped in. She felt alone, humiliated, and unwelcome. She slowly lowered the handbag she had been admiring back onto the display rack. Her hands trembled slightly as she did. The pink purse she once thought would bring joy now only reminded her of the bitter taste of rejection. Taking a deep breath, Maya whispered, I was just shopping. The woman rolled her eyes. Well, now you can shop somewhere else. You don't belong here. Maya's chest tightened. She turned toward the door, ready to walk out, her steps heavy with sadness. All the excitement she had felt earlier was gone. The picture of her best friend smiling with her gift faded away, replaced by the echo of the woman's cruel voice. But even as she walked toward the exit, Maya kept her head up. She told herself she wouldn't let this woman break her spirit completely. She might have been pushed out of the store, but deep inside, she knew her worth wasn't defined by a stranger's opinion. Still, in that moment, all she wanted was to see her father's face, to feel the comfort of someone who loved her and would tell her everything was going to be okay. Just as she reached the front door, it swung open. A tall man in a tailored suit stepped inside. His presence immediately drew attention. He had a calm but powerful look, the kind of person who carried quiet authority. His eyes softened when they landed on Maya, and his lips curved into a small smile. It was her father. Maya's heart leapt. She wanted to run into his arms, but before she could speak, the woman's voice rang out again. "Oh good, you're here," she said, assuming he was just another shopper. "Perhaps you can help me explain to this girl she has no business being in this store." Maya's father looked at his daughter, then at the woman, and then at the store staff who were frozen in place. He could sense the tension in the air immediately, but he didn't raise his voice. He simply placed a steady hand on Maya's shoulder and asked softly, "What happened, sweetheart?" At that moment, Maya knew things were about to change. Maya's father, Mr. Johnson, looked down at his daughter with gentle eyes. He could see the way her small hands still trembled, the way her shoulders seemed heavy with shame. He didn't need many words to understand something had gone wrong. Maya had always been confident and cheerful, but right now she looked hurt and small. He placed his hand on her shoulder and gave it a reassuring squeeze. Maya opened her mouth to explain, but before she could, the woman jumped in. "This girl doesn't belong here," she said firmly, her chin tilted high in pride. "She's making everyone uncomfortable. I've already asked the manager to remove her, and I expect you'll support that. It's not right for children like her to wander into stores like this." Her voice carried across the quiet store, each word sharp like a blade. Some customers nearby shook their heads, some turned away, but no one dared to challenge her. Maya's father studied the woman carefully. His face remained calm, but his eyes grew colder. Maya swallowed hard, gathering courage. "Dad," she said softly, "I was just looking for a gift for Emma's birthday. I didn't do anything wrong. She told me to leave." Her voice cracked, not from guilt but from the pain of being treated as if she were less than everyone else. Mr. Johnson's jaw tightened ever so slightly, but he kept his tone steady. "I see," he replied gently. He brushed his hand over Maya's hair, a small gesture of comfort. Then he turned his attention to the woman who had caused the scene. The woman didn't seem nervous. She smiled, certain that she was right, certain that the store would back her up. "Well," she said confidently, "at least you understand. Children need to learn their place. She should be outside, not here where people are spending real money." Her words cut deeper than she realized. Maya lowered her eyes, fighting tears again, while her father stood tall beside her. The store manager, a middle-aged man in a neat gray suit, finally walked over. He had been watching nervously from behind the counter, hoping the situation would resolve itself, but now there was no avoiding it. "Sir," he said quietly, looking at Mr. Johnson, "I'm sorry, but maybe it would be best if your daughter left. The lady here is one of our regular clients, and she doesn't feel comfortable. We want all our customers to enjoy their experience." Maya's father turned his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "So you're asking my daughter, who has done nothing wrong, to leave?" he asked. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. The manager shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his tie. "It's not personal," he stammered. "It's just, this store has a certain standard. People come here expecting a certain type of shopper. We don't want any disturbances." Maya's father tilted his head, his lips pressing into a firm line. He looked down at his daughter, then back at the manager. "And you think she is a disturbance?" he asked quietly. The manager hesitated, but before he could answer, the woman jumped in again. "Of course she is. Just look at her. She doesn't belong in a place like this. You should thank me for pointing it out. It's embarrassing to have someone like her wandering around." Every word echoed in Maya's ears like a drum beat of humiliation. She wanted to scream, to shout that she belonged here just as much as anyone else, but she stayed silent. She leaned closer to her father, drawing strength from his steady presence. Mr. Johnson slowly straightened his shoulders. The room seemed to grow smaller as his quiet authority filled the air. He was not raising his voice, but everyone in the store could feel that something important was about to happen. "I don't appreciate the way you've spoken to my daughter," he said, his voice firm. "She is a customer, just like anyone else here. She has done nothing wrong. Yet you, and the staff, have treated her as if she doesn't matter." The woman rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be dramatic. This is a high-end store. She clearly can't afford anything here. She's wasting everyone's time. I was only trying to keep the standard of the place." A hush fell over the store. Every customer nearby was listening, even if they pretended to browse clothes. Some were shocked at her boldness. Some felt ashamed for staying silent. But no one interrupted. Mr. Johnson looked down at Maya again. Her face was pale, but her eyes searched his as if asking silently whether he would protect her. He gave her a small nod, reassuring her without words. Then he turned back to the manager and the woman. "Let me ask you something," he said slowly, looking directly at the manager. "If another young customer walked in here, dressed in a private school uniform, would you have treated them this way? If another child, maybe one who looked more like her," he glanced toward the woman, "had picked up a handbag, would you have told them to leave?" The manager's throat bobbed nervously. "Well, sir, it's not about that, it is about that," Mr. Johnson interrupted, his voice calm but commanding. "It's exactly about that. My daughter has been judged, humiliated, and pushed toward the door, not because of her actions, but because of who she is. And you went along with it?" Maya looked up at her father in awe. She had seen him in meetings before, but never like this. His voice carried strength, but it wasn't angry, it was controlled, steady, like a mountain that could not be moved. The woman scoffed. "You're making this too serious. She should just learn a lesson. If she wants to shop here, maybe she should come back with someone who belongs. Honestly, you should thank me." Mr. Johnson turned his gaze to her. "Thank you," he repeated, his eyebrows lifting slightly. "You want me to thank you for embarrassing a young girl in front of strangers, for teaching her that she's less worthy than others? No. That's not something I will ever thank you for." For the first time, the woman's confident smile faltered. She had expected him to agree or at least to stay quiet. But now, his words cut through her pride. The store was silent, all eyes fixed on the man and his daughter. Maya felt her father's hand rest on her shoulder again, steady and warm. For the first time since she had stepped into the store, she felt safe. She didn't know yet that her father's true identity would change everything, but she could sense that the balance of power had shifted. The manager opened his mouth again, fumbling for words. "Sir, please, I didn't mean any harm. We only want to keep the store comfortable for everyone." "Comfortable?" Mr. Johnson asked softly. "Comfortable for whom? For people who think others should be thrown out based on appearances? For people who believe a child can't belong here because she doesn't look like them? His voice was sharp now, every word deliberate. If that is your definition of comfort, then your store has already failed. Maya looked around. For the first time, she noticed a young couple near the handbags nodding quietly in agreement. An older man near the scarves folded his arms, clearly disturbed by what he had heard. People were beginning to realize this was more than just a small disagreement. The woman huffed, turning red. She still didn't understand who she was speaking to. She thought he was just another parent defending his child. She didn't know that he was the man who signed the paychecks of every staff member in the building, the man who built the very brand she loved to shop from. That revelation was still to come. But for now, the store was frozen in tense silence. Mr. Johnson's calm authority filled the space, and everyone knew this was no ordinary argument. Something important was unfolding, something that would not be forgotten by anyone present. And Maya, though still shaken, felt her father's strength steady her heart. She stood a little taller, her tears drying. She didn't know what would happen next, but she believed in him. The tension in the store grew heavier, almost like the air itself had thickened. Every person inside could feel that something important was about to happen. Maya stood silently by her father's side, her heart still beating fast. She wanted to disappear, but at the same time she wanted to stay close to him. His steady presence gave her strength, and though her eyes still felt watery, she refused to cry in front of the woman who had tried to push her out. The woman folded her arms and spoke again, her voice sharp and unkind. "You don't seem to understand. She doesn't belong here. She's only here to look around, not to buy. People like her come in and make the place look cheap. You should take her out before she embarrasses herself further." Before Maya could respond, her father raised a hand gently, signaling for her to stay quiet. He kept his eyes on the woman, his face calm, though his silence carried more power than raised voices ever could. The store manager fidgeted nearby, torn between pleasing the woman and trying not to upset the tall man standing with his daughter. Maya's father finally spoke, his tone measured and deliberate. "I think it is you who doesn't understand. My daughter came here as a customer. She came to buy a gift. Instead of being treated with kindness, she was judged and humiliated. You assumed she had no place here, but tell me who gave you the right to decide where my child belongs?" The woman blinked, momentarily caught off guard, but she quickly recovered. "I gave myself the right," she said proudly. "I'm a paying customer here. I spend thousands of dollars in this store. People like me keep this business alive. So yes, I have the right to demand that people who don't fit in should leave. It's about maintaining standards." Her words fell into the silence like stones into still water, creating ripples of discomfort. Several customers shifted uneasily, while others looked directly at Mr. Johnson, waiting for his reply. Maya glanced up at her father, her small hands tightening around the straps of her backpack. She wanted him to say something powerful, something that would make the woman stop. And he did. "You talk about standards," he said softly, his eyes locked on hers. "But the true standard of any business is how it treats people. A store can sell the most expensive clothes in the world, but if it allows arrogance and cruelty, it fails. A true business welcomes all customers with dignity, not just those who look like you or spend like you." The woman rolled her eyes again. "Spare me the lecture," she said, though her voice was less steady now. "The manager already agreed with me. Your daughter doesn't belong here. That should be the end of it." At that, the manager shifted nervously, realizing the spotlight was back on him. He looked at Mr. Johnson and tried to defend himself. "Sir, please understand, I was only trying to keep the peace. He nodded toward the woman, is one of our loyal clients. We can't afford to upset her." Mr. Johnson's gaze moved to the manager, piercing and steady. "And so you chose to upset my daughter instead? You chose to send away a young customer rather than tell a grown woman she was wrong?" Is that how you believe loyalty works, by turning against those who did nothing wrong? The manager swallowed hard. I didn't mean it like that. Maya looked around the store. Customers were no longer pretending to shop. They were listening closely now, some leaning against displays, some whispering quietly to each other. The woman's confident expression began to falter as the weight of silence grew heavier. Her father straightened his back, his voice clear and calm. "I think it's time you all knew the truth," he said, addressing not only the woman and the manager, but everyone in the store. "You've been speaking as if my daughter does not belong here. You've been treating her as if she were less than the rest of you. But let me introduce myself properly." He reached into the inside pocket of his suit and pulled out a sleek black leather wallet. Inside, he carried his identification card, one that bore his full name, his position, and the logo of the company. He held it up so the manager could see clearly. The manager leaned in, his eyes widening as he read the words, "Chief Executive Officer." His face turned pale, his lips parting as if he had lost the ability to speak. Maya's father turned slightly so the woman could also see. "I am Mr. Johnson," he said firmly. "I am the CEO of this retail company. This is my daughter. And she has every right to be here, more right than most of you, because she is part of my family. And if she chooses to shop in this store, she will be treated with the same respect as anyone else." The silence that followed was deafening. Gasps spread across the room, followed by hushed whispers. Some customers exchanged shocked looks, some covered their mouths, and others nodded slowly in recognition. The woman who had been so loud and proud only moments earlier now stood frozen, her face draining of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she was speechless. The arrogance that had carried her words now collapsed under the weight of the truth. She had insulted the daughter of the very man who owned the store she claimed to protect. Maya felt a rush of emotions. Relief washed over her as she realized her father had revealed his identity, but pride also filled her chest. She had always known he was important, but seeing him stand so calmly and powerfully in front of everyone made her feel like she was witnessing his true strength. The manager quickly bowed his head, his voice shaky. "Sir. I didn't know. Please forgive me. I didn't realize who you were." Mr. Johnson's eyes hardened. "That is exactly the problem," he said. "You shouldn't have to know who I am to treat my daughter with respect. You shouldn't have to know her father's position to see her as a valued customer. Respect should not be earned by status, it should be given freely to every person who walks through that door." The woman shifted uncomfortably, her fingers twisting around the strap of her purse. For once, she had nothing to say. Her confidence was gone, her pride shattered by the quiet strength of the man before her. Maya's father looked around the store, his voice rising slightly so that every customer and staff member could hear. "Let this be a lesson," he said firmly. "This company was built on values of fairness, respect, and dignity. If we forget those values, we lose more than business, we lose our humanity. My daughter came here today to buy a gift, not to be judged. And I will not allow anyone, not even long-time clients, to take away her dignity." Applause suddenly broke the silence. It started with one man near the scarf counter, then spread to a young woman near the handbags, and soon several customers were clapping. Some smiled at Maya, others nodded at her father, their faces full of respect. Maya felt warmth flood her chest. For the first time since stepping into the store, she didn't feel small or invisible. She felt seen. She stood taller, her father's hand still resting on her shoulder like a shield. The woman glanced around, her face turning red as she realized the room was no longer on her side. People were not supporting her arrogance, they were supporting the man she had tried to challenge. She grabbed her purse tighter, her lips pressed together, and took a small step back. For once, silence was her only option. And in that moment, Maya knew the tide had turned. What began as humiliation was becoming a powerful moment of truth. Her father's words had not only defended her but had revealed a truth that left everyone in the store shaken. The story was no longer just about a girl being told she didn't belong. It had become about justice, dignity, and the quiet strength of a father who refused to let his child be shamed. And though the scene wasn't over yet, everyone present knew they were witnessing something unforgettable. The store had never felt so quiet. Every customer stood frozen, watching the scene unfold like a movie. The white woman who had once been so loud and demanding now looked as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. The confidence she had displayed minutes earlier had drained away, leaving her face pale and her lips pressed tightly together. She tried to avoid the eyes of the other shoppers, but it was impossible. Everywhere she turned, she could feel the weight of their judgment. Mr. Johnson stood tall, his hand still resting on Maya's shoulder. His calm presence filled the room, and even those who didn't know him could sense his authority. He wasn't just another customer anymore, he was the man who owned the very company they were standing in. And yet, what struck people the most wasn't his title, but the way he carried himself. He didn't shout, he didn't lose control, but every word he spoke carried power. The store manager cleared his throat nervously, bowing his head slightly. "Sir, I truly apologize. I did not realize who you were." "If I had known." Mr. Johnson raised his hand, stopping him mid-sentence. His voice was calm but sharp. "That is exactly the problem. You shouldn't have to know who I am to do the right thing. You shouldn't need my name or my position to know that my daughter deserves respect. Every person who walks into this store deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter what they wear, no matter where they come from, no matter what you assume about them." The manager swallowed hard, nodding quickly, unable to argue. Mr. Johnson looked around the store, his voice carrying farther now, as though he wanted not only the staff but every customer to hear him. This company was built on the belief that fashion is for everyone. Our values are rooted in equality and kindness. If anyone thinks they can raise the status of this store by lowering the dignity of another person, they are wrong. We don't become better by pushing others down. The words hit the room with force. Customers exchanged glances, some nodding, some even whispering their agreement. A few began to clap again, softly at first, then louder. The woman's face turned red with humiliation. She tried to hold her ground, but her voice betrayed her nervousness as she muttered, "You're making this into something it's not. I was just trying to protect the store's image." Mr. Johnson turned his eyes toward her, steady and unflinching. "The only image you protected was your own pride," he said firmly. "And in the process, you tried to humiliate a child. A child who came here with joy in her heart, only to be told she didn't belong. That's not protecting an image, that's destroying one. And I will not stand by and allow my company to be represented that way." The woman looked down at her shoes, her confidence completely broken. She tried to speak again but couldn't form the words. For the first time, she realized the seriousness of her actions. Mr. Johnson turned his gaze back to the store manager. "You are responsible for this place. It is your job to make sure every customer feels welcome. Instead, you let one person's arrogance dictate how you treated another. That is unacceptable. Consider this your warning. If I hear of this behavior again, not only will there be consequences for you, but I will personally make sure the entire staff is retrained from top to bottom." The manager's face went pale. He nodded quickly, his voice shaking. "Yes, sir. Understood, sir. It won't happen again. I promise." Maya looked up at her father with wide eyes. She had always admired him, but now she saw a side of him that was even more inspiring. He wasn't just a successful businessman, he was a leader who stood up for what was right. And he wasn't just defending his company, he was defending her. The warmth of pride filled her chest, replacing the hurt she had felt earlier. The customers around them seemed to be moved too. Some nodded their heads in respect, others clapped softly again. One woman, standing near the shoe display, whispered to her friend, "That little girl is lucky. Her dad's not just powerful, he's good." Mr. Johnson gently turned back to his daughter, his voice softening. "You did nothing wrong, Maya. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong somewhere. You belong wherever you choose to be." Maya's lips curved into the faintest smile. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Her father squeezed her shoulder, then spoke once more to the room. "Let me make this clear for everyone here, discrimination has no place in this company. Not in this store, not in any store with our name on it. We don't judge customers based on appearances. We don't make assumptions about their worth. Every person deserves respect. That is the only standard we will accept." The applause that followed this time was louder, stronger. Customers who had been silent before now joined in. Some clapped with both hands, others called out, "That's right, and well said." The energy in the room shifted completely. What had begun as a scene of humiliation was now a moment of truth, a lesson in dignity that no one there would forget. The white woman, now overwhelmed with shame, grabbed her handbag tightly and turned toward the door. She couldn't stand the stairs any longer, nor the sound of people clapping for the man she had insulted. Without another word, she hurried out of the store, her heels clicking loudly on the floor. As the door closed behind her, the silence she left behind was quickly replaced by more applause. People were smiling now, some even looking at Maya with encouraging nods, as if to tell her she was brave just for standing there. The manager, still shaken, turned back to Mr. Johnson. "Sir, please allow me to personally apologize to your daughter. I truly regret how I handled this." Mr. Johnson's voice was calm but firm. "An apology is a start. But make sure your actions change. This isn't about me, it's about every customer who walks through that door. Remember that." The manager nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Understood." Maya's father then crouched slightly to be at eye level with his daughter. His expression softened into a smile. "Now, sweetheart," he said warmly, "why don't you go ahead and pick something? Anything you want. Today, this store belongs to you." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Anything?" she asked softly. "Anything," he repeated with a smile. Her face lit up, and for the first time since she had entered the store, she felt excitement again. She walked slowly back toward the handbag display, her steps lighter now, her heart swelling with pride. She picked up the same soft pink purse she had admired earlier. Holding it in her hands again, it no longer reminded her of humiliation, it reminded her of strength. She looked back at her father and whispered, "I think this is the one. For Emma." Mr. Johnson nodded, his smile full of pride. "Then that's the one." The customers nearby, still clapping softly, watched as Maya held the purse close. To them, it wasn't just about a handbag anymore, it was about a little girl who had been told she didn't belong, and a father who showed the world that she did. And as the staff hurried to ring up the purchase with nervous hands and polite smiles, everyone in that store knew they had witnessed something far bigger than a shopping trip. They had witnessed dignity being restored, a lesson being taught, and a father standing unshakably for what was right. The sound of the door closing behind the woman seemed to echo through the store like the end of a long storm. For a moment, everyone was still, as if they were trying to process what had just happened. The tense air that had filled the shop slowly gave way to something softer, something lighter. Maya stood near her father, holding the pink handbag close to her chest. The purse she had almost left behind was now a symbol of victory, of dignity, of belonging. The store manager stepped forward, bowing his head again. His voice trembled slightly as he said, "Mr. Johnson, I assure you, this store will not repeat such behavior. I will personally make sure the staff are retrained and reminded of our values." Mr. Johnson nodded calmly. See that you do. This isn't just about one incident. It's about the message you send every day to every customer who walks in here. Remember, you never know who someone is. But more importantly, you should never have to know who someone is to treat them with respect. The manager's face flushed with shame, and he nodded again, repeating, Yes, sir. Absolutely. The staff members behind the counters whispered quietly to each other, their eyes wide. Some looked embarrassed, others relieved that their leader had spoken so clearly. One young saleswoman in particular, who had earlier hesitated when asked to remove Maya, now stepped forward. Her cheeks were pink as she looked at Maya and said softly, I'm sorry for not standing up for you. I should have spoken sooner. Maya looked at her with gentle eyes and gave the faintest smile. It's okay, she said quietly. Her heart was still healing from the sting of being humiliated, but her father's words had given her courage. She didn't want to hold anger inside her. Her father watched the exchange with pride. He knew his daughter had been hurt, but he also knew this experience had planted something strong inside her, an understanding that her voice mattered, that her worth wasn't defined by others' opinions. The customers, who had remained silent earlier, now began to approach Maya and her father. One older gentleman with gray hair removed his hat and said, Sir, that was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. You taught us all a lesson today. A woman with her daughter by her side added, Your little girl is so brave. I hope she knows she inspired people today. My daughter will remember this moment. Maya's cheeks flushed with surprise. She hadn't thought of herself as brave. She had only stood quietly by her father. But hearing these words, she realized that sometimes just enduring, just staying strong when people try to push you down, is an act of courage. Her father placed his arm gently around her shoulder. She is brave, he said proudly. She's stronger than she knows. The applause returned, softer this time but more heartfelt, as if the people inside the store wanted to acknowledge not only Mr. Johnson's authority but also Maya's quiet strength. Mr. Johnson guided his daughter toward the counter. The staff hurried nervously, treating her with extra care now, as if she were royalty. But Maya didn't want special treatment. She only wanted to feel normal, to feel like any other customer. She placed the handbag on the counter with a small smile and said, This is the one. I think my friend will love it. The cashier, her hands slightly shaky, processed the purchase quickly. She placed the purse carefully in a glossy bag with the store's logo, then handed it to Maya with both hands, almost like an offering. Here you go, she said respectfully. Maya took the bag and looked up at her father. For the first time since stepping into the store, her smile returned fully. It wasn't forced or hesitant, it was real. Her father smiled back, his eyes soft with pride. Are you ready to go, sweetheart? He asked. She nodded, clutching the bag tightly. Together, they began to walk toward the exit. As they moved, customers stepped aside, giving them space. Some smiled warmly at Maya, others gave small nods of respect to her father. The atmosphere was completely different from when they had entered. Just as they reached the door, a woman called out softly, Thank you for standing up for her. You reminded us all of what matters. Mr. Johnson paused, turning slightly. His deep voice carried gently across the room. We all have a choice every day. We can choose silence, or we can choose kindness. Kindness will always be the stronger choice. With those words, he pushed open the door and walked out with Maya by his side. The cool air outside felt refreshing after the heavy atmosphere inside. Maya took a deep breath, the tension slowly leaving her chest. She glanced up at her father and whispered, Dad, I thought I was going to cry back there. He looked down at her with a soft smile. It's okay to cry, he said gently. But what matters is that you didn't let them take your spirit. You stood tall, even when it hurt. That's real strength. Maya leaned into his side as they walked, her heart swelling with love and pride. She felt safe again, and more than that, she felt seen. Later that evening, the story began to spread. A customer who had been in the store shared what happened on social media. Within hours, photos and short videos were circulating online. People wrote about how a girl had been told to leave a luxury store, only for her father, the CEO of the entire company, to arrive and reveal the truth. The comments poured in. Thousands of strangers praised Mr. Johnson for defending his daughter and for teaching the store a lesson about equality. Many wrote that they were moved to tears by the story, while others shared their own experiences of being judged unfairly. The incident became more than a simple argument in a store. It became a symbol of standing up against prejudice and showing leadership with dignity. Maya scrolled through some of the messages with wide eyes. "Dad," she whispered, "people are talking about us everywhere. They're saying you're amazing." Mr. Johnson chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about me, Maya. It's about the message. If people learn to treat others with kindness because of what they saw today, then it's worth it." Maya thought about that quietly. She realized her father hadn't just stood up for her, he had stood up for everyone who had ever been judged unfairly. And in doing so, he had shown her that leadership wasn't about power or titles. It was about courage, values, and love. The next day, the company released a statement reaffirming their commitment to fairness and respect for all customers. Training sessions were scheduled for every store, and employees were reminded of the values that guided the brand. The incident became a turning point, not only for the staff who witnessed it but for many others who heard about it. For Maya, the memory of that day would never fade. She would always remember the sting of humiliation, but more importantly, she would remember how her father turned that pain into a powerful lesson. He showed her that she had worth, that her place in the world was hers to claim, and that no one had the right to take it away. On the evening of her friend's birthday, Maya handed over the pink handbag. Emma's face lit up with joy as she opened the gift, exactly as Maya had imagined. But this time, the smile meant even more, because behind it was a story of courage and love that had changed Maya forever. She knew that one day, when she was older, she would tell this story herself, not as a tale of shame, but as a reminder that dignity must be protected, kindness must be chosen, and silence must be broken when someone is being treated unfairly. And deep inside, she carried the strength of her father's words. She belonged anywhere she chose to be.